Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. So today I want to talk to you about systems-based thinking. And I'm not talking about in a business context here. I'm talking more about in your career, whatever it is you do. But if you're involved in overseeing a process where you're turning inputs into outputs, then it's always going to be a big win for you if you can help put in place systems which streamline everything. Systems help free up your time. So in an absence of a system, you're going to be a slave to the process. As a former employer of hundreds of staff all over the world, mostly virtual staff, I always appreciated staff who could think in terms of systems, because that was exactly what I always wanted to do to help scale the company. I knew that we needed more systems. So even if one of my staff made a system which made me less dependent on them, I would always want to keep that person around and not only keep them, but actually promote them and have them be in a more managerial role. Let me give you an example of what happens when there's no system in place. So right now I have this little situation in my work where there's no system at all. In my drawer at my desk, I've got about 10 different drives, and some of these drives are 1 terabyte, some 4, some 2, some are cheap, some are expensive, some are reliable, and some are very unreliable. Now inside of those drives are different courses that we've filmed, and inside each of those there's different camera angles. So sometimes 3, sometimes 4 different camera angles. So the whole thing is a complete mess. And the other day I spent an entire day transferring footage from one drive to another, trying to organize things. And again, it is a complete mess. There is no system, and that's a real problem. And if I don't streamline this whole process, it's going to end up really bad, because sometimes drives fail and I don't have a lot of this backed up. So I recognize that there needs to be a proper system. So here's what I'm doing. Number one, I'm putting into place a rule that every single file, it's going to be backed up, and it must exist in 3 places. It's going to be number 1 in a physical place on a drive, number 2 in the cloud. So that might be Google Drive, it might be Dropbox. And then number 3, it's got to be somewhere else. So for example, in another physical place, a whole different location. So I recognize right now that this whole process, it's very flawed and it can be streamlined a lot. So I'm putting in place a process right now where when we film a course, number 1, everything must get labeled. Number 2, everything must get immediately uploaded to the cloud. So we're gonna have everything backed up on the cloud in case that drive failed. And then number 3, all those files must get sent to my editors. My editors right now, I've got one in Serbia, I've got one in Turkey, but it can't be uploaded a little bit here, a little bit there, some last week, some this week, some next week. That is not a proper system. So the point I'm making here is that you've got to always look at processes and think to yourself, how do I make this process more efficient? How do I turn this into a system where it relies less on me remembering where something is or remembering to do something, and the system does the majority of the work? In other words, you take yourself out of the system. It becomes less dependent on you. Now, the other problem with this process is right now I am far too involved in it. It relies on me having to help film. So that's the next thing I'm working on. How do I take myself out of the process so that we can continue to create these courses here at Strive without me having to physically get so involved in filming and then uploading files? So I'm hiring more people. My ultimate goal with this is to be able to create courses here at Strive where I don't need to be there. I don't need to find trainers. I don't need to be filming. I don't need to be uploading. I am completely out. And that's only going to happen with a proper system. Now, again, this is not a business lesson. This applies to any career, any job, your job, anyone's job. But a system, even a terrible one, can always be made more efficient. And as an employee of a company, if you can always be thinking, how do I put in place a system, or how do I make the existing system that we have right now, how do we make that far more efficient? That's always going to get you ahead in your career, because good managers or owners of companies, they will always highly appreciate the rare staff who can think in terms of systems. And why is that? It's because systems set you free. When your company can be more dependent upon systems rather than people remembering to do something or showing up somewhere at some time, that company is always going to be able to be more successful. So you will be highly appreciated for that. So that's it for today. I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you tomorrow.